Okay, cool. So, I am Accomp. I've been playing Warcraft since, let's see, December 2004. And basically what we're going to do today is go through the rogue, the Assassination rogue, and I want to kind of just show kind of how I handle the class, go over essentially every aspect of the rogue. And I've got these topics listed out here, so we're going to go over add-ons, consumables, itemization, enchants, gems, talents, glyphs and poisons, rotations, some rogue tips, and then I've got a handful of resources that I will be documenting for everyone as well. So we've got that all laid out. Again, this is for the Assassination rogue, so as a rogue, you really should know how to play at least two specs. You should be knowing how to play both combat and either sub or assassination. The reason for that is both assassination and sub are pretty crummy when it comes to AoE. Assassination in particular, pretty terrible. So really having combat is definitely something you're going to want to learn how to do regardless of the situation. So I prefer assassination. Sub is a little bit higher DPS, but it is a lot less flexible in my opinion, and I do enjoy assassination more, and I know there are quite a few people who do. And as if anyone's watching the stream, you can see Tumna is also in our stream. He's a rogue from Alone. He's going to be modding the stream today, so he offered to do that, so thanks to him. He's just trolling the stream right now, which is kind of hilarious, honestly. Okay, so let's go over add-ons. So when it comes to add-ons, I've broken this up into two sections. You have your rogue specific add-ons, and then you have your general add-ons, right? So rogue specific add-ons are going to be things like weak auras, and one in particular that I use is Slice Commander. Weak auras can essentially do everything that you need, but Slice Commander is kind of, I want to say, it's more usable. It's right out of the box. It works. You don't have to configure it really. It's all there. It adapts to your specs, things like that. So the learning curve is definitely a lot lower on Slice Commander, and it does kind of all the essentials. So if you want a little bit more flexibility, then maybe you go with something like weak auras. I personally just use weak auras to complement Slice Commander, things like knowing when trinkets proc and things like that. So that's what I would do for that. And again, when we go into my stream and kind of show rotation stuff, I'll kind of point out what each of the add-ons listed are and how I use them. When it comes to general add-ons, I'm a big fan of LVUI. I did recently switch about 2 months ago. I was pretty avid about using custom UIs, complete custom UIs, just have complete control. And I did switch to LVUI, and the flexibility in the add-on is just, it's pretty great. I mean, it does everything that you would need it to do. Very flexible. You can change the way it looks, how things are positioned, how it behaves, things like that. So that's definitely something that I'd recommend looking into if you haven't already. It's just a great foundation, and then you can fill in whatever you need from there. If there's any gaps or things that you just don't like the way that it works, you can go and you can kind of just supplement it with other add-ons to your liking. That includes things like Bigwigs or DBM. Those are two add-ons, just one or the other really. DBM has some good PvP modules, so if you PvP, maybe that's a better choice for you. I also use GTFO, which is essentially just an add-on that beeps, it yells at you when you're standing in bad. We all do it. And rather than getting yelled at by your raid lead to say, hey, stop standing in that, it just beeps at you and says, you know, stop being stupid. So that's kind of an essential thing to have, and you know, the less beeps, the better, obviously. So if you're streaming and it beeps at you, you get your stream to laugh at you because you're being stupid. Let's see what else. SCADA or a recount. Either of those, I prefer SCADA. But really they do the exact same thing. There's really no need, as far as rogues go, there's no need for Omen anymore. Threat really is not an issue. I mean, as long as you tricks before the pull, you're not going to pull aggro. So that's really something that I actually deleted last week. Not really necessary anymore, so if you can reduce the amount of memory used with your add-ons, definitely do it. Alright, so that's really all I had for add-ons. There are a ton more that you can do and use, but really, when it comes to the essentials, that's kind of the core of what I use, and again, you can supplement with whatever you want. So let's kind of dive into the more rogue-oriented stuff here. So we've got consumables. Whenever you go to a raid, you're supposed to come prepared, right? So you have 3 core consumables. You have your flask, greater Dranic Agility Flask, and you have your potions, Dranic Agility Potion. So the potions, you'll be using 2 per fight. You want to pre-pot, which means you can pot while you're stealth now, and it will not break stealth. That's something new with 6.0, the latest pots. They do not break stealth, which is great. So you can, just right at the beginning of the fight, you just stealth, tricks your tank, you have a DBM counter for pull, you just pre-pot at about 2, and then you're good to go. And that allows you to go into the fight with the pot buff, and also you can use it again later in the fight. Typically you time it with your cooldowns and with a Bloodluster. Heroism, I guess, alliance. So you kind of go about that. And then again, people will probably bring Savage Feasts. That's your best way to go. I think it's 100 stat. And that's going to be your optimal food. So that's really it for the consumables. There's nothing crazy. LFR does drop these runes. I haven't used them yet, but I just saw them the other day. That's like, gives you agility or something like that. So that might be worth looking into. I think it gives you like agility for an hour or something. When it comes to itemization, so this is a little weird because itemization is not a straightforward thing. Itemization is something that varies based on your current your current gear. So as far as we're concerned, entry-level rogues, this is going to be people in dungeon gear, maybe people in normal heroic gear. Our itemization is going to go crit is equal to mastery, and then those are both better than multi-strike, which is equal to versatility, which is better than haste. Haste, you don't even bother. Just avoid at all costs as an assassination rogue. Combat, you want haste. Again, with these stats, you are going to want to reference Shadowcraft, which is a gear optimization tool run by the rogue community. I've provided that in the links in this document, which I'll give you guys as well. And it basically just allows you to link your armory into this kind of nice interface that it's a spreadsheet pretty much. And it calculates stat weights based on your gear and makes gear recommendations. So if you're not using that now, you should be. I mean, it tells you everything, literally everything. So that's definitely something you should be getting familiar with, kind of understanding how it works, looking at the weights, and going from there. It's currently not 100% accurate. There still are some bugs with it because all the data is pretty new. But again, if you stay in close contact with the Ravenholt community, which I'll also show you, those are the guys that are kind of running Shadowcraft at this point. They are kind of talking about it in their IRC chat daily, so I mean, if that's something you're interested in, you can hop in there and ask rogue questions or see what they're talking about. These are people doing mythic content. This is Vidge from Midwinter and Fiery Demise and Pathel. It's all the top rogues out there, so it's pretty cool to be able to kind of jump in this chat and just talk with them. And it's, in my opinion, Ravenholt is the new elitist jerks just for rogues, which is exactly what we need, honestly. So that's kind of itemization. It's just a bare bones, there's your stat priority currently, but again, that will change as you go on. Multi-strike becomes heavier, crit becomes heavier. It's a balance of your current gear, so when in doubt, just always check Shadowcraft. Again, we can't reforge anymore, so you only have so much control, but when picking pieces, picking bonus rolls, it's kind of how you should go about it. Alright, so when it comes to enchants, again, this is another thing where there's still a lot of research going on. currently the thought is that for weapons, all weapons should be Mark of Shattered Hand. I think that's pretty much all specs at this point in time. That may change, but with the current gear, it is Mark of Shattered Hand. They're really cheap. You can get, just get 2 of them. I think they're like 400 gold a piece, last I checked. Really cheap, really easy to acquire, so just toss those on both your daggers and you're good to go. I think that may change when you start getting into mythic quality gear. But again, that's not really something the majority of us need to really worry about at this point in time. It's just something you keep an eye on in Shadowcraft and see, constantly check your upgrades, and it'll let you optimize gems and enchants and do that. So that's something you should just check pretty often. Everything else is really easy because it's all Gift of Critical Strike. And again, Critical Strike and Mastery, those 2 gems, the enchants are really close, but I think same with the gems is Critical Strike pulls ahead a little bit. I think it's, again, just a balancing of your current gear stats. So if you're heavy in Mastery, it'll suggest crit, vice versa. So gems, kind of like I said, Mastery, crit, the greater Mastery Talidite and greater Critical Strike Talidite. Those are the 2 you want to get. They are pretty expensive. There is a cheaper version of each. It kind of all depends on how serious you want to take it. If you want to drop the money or not. Maybe get a guildie to help you make them or something like that. Trade cooldowns or whatever the case might be. Okay, so we've got that. We've got all the basics there, right? We've got the consumables, itemization, enchants, gems, some of the add-ons we've gone over. Now let's get into talents. So for talents for a rogue are actually pretty flexible. Some of them are not at all, right? You get 3 choices and one of them is the definitive choice. So if we're looking at all the talents, in tier 1, we're going to get Shadow Focus. And I'll bring this up in the stream, just so we can kind of look at it. So Shadow Focus is basically just a passive ability that, when you're stealthed, abilities cost 75% less energy, which is great, because later on when we talk about glyphs, we're going to be running Glyph of Disappearance, which reduces the cooldown of Vanish and makes it 1 minute, so we're going to basically be vanishing on cooldown every single minute. And it's all about getting as many abilities out as you can during the encounter. More abilities you cast, more damage you do. So that's pretty much a no-brainer for the tier 1 talent. When we go to tier 2, we're going to be picking Nerve Strike, mostly because the other 2 abilities aren't that great. Nerve Strike it reduces damage dealt and increases healing done by the target. It's kind of one of those talents, the tiers, that just isn't that great. You could go with Combat Readiness, but again, it's pretty trivial. That is kind of just pick whatever you want. Most people I see go with Nerve Strike. So there's going to be a little bit of controversy with number 3, with tier 3. Leeching Poison is not good. Just don't get it. It's not worth it. So your 2 options are Cheat Death and Elusiveness. So we'll talk about Elusiveness first. With Elusiveness, it's a passive that when you faint, it also reduces all damage you take by 30% for 7 seconds. So when you're talking about playing defensively, that is, that's really important. That's something that you accept as a rogue, as a DPS really is a dead DPS does no DPS, so you just take that mindset that you want to play defensively. So if you know the mechanics are coming, we all have timers, we all have everything that tells us what the boss is going to do, when he's going to do it. You can kind of time things to say, the boss is about to cast this ability, I can use Feint and I can mitigate some of that damage. On the flip side, there's Cheat Death. So the way Cheat Death works is, if an ability was going to kill you, it's going to reduce you to 7% health and you won't die. just once. If you get killed again, you're dead. However, if you are just starting, we're all just starting, right? We're all looking at new fights, new content, whatever the case might be. Please pick cheat death. So the reason behind this is we're all learning fights, we're all going to be making mistakes. Not even just us, but the healers, the tanks. Everyone will be making mistakes. So use cheat death. It's a gimme, right? So if you were gonna die, cheat death will save you. And again, that has saved me so many times, especially on something like Butcher, where, you know, that one stack that could kill you, you don't die. So it's something that is actually really, really useful. The next tier 4, Cloak and Dagger is pretty useless for PvE. So Shadow Step and Burst of Speed. This is really personal preference. I know a lot of rogues who like Burst of Speed. I personally like Shadow Step. It's just two different types of gameplay. Burst of Speed does cost 30 energy, whereas Shadow Step doesn't cost anything. So that's something to take into consideration. If you're using energy on Burst of Speed, you're not using it on a Mutilate, so something to keep in mind. I prefer Shadow Step. Alright, so tier 5. Again, this is one of those things where it's just an ability. It's the only ability to pick. Spray on the Weak. Just means that any enemies that are disabled with Kidney Shot, Cheap Shot, Gouge, Sap, or Blind take 10% increased damage. Not something you really use that often in PvE, but there's no good other options. Alright. So when we're looking at tier 6, there's a couple different ways to do this. I'd recommend Anticipation, just because it's the most flexible. It helps your rotation just be a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. You don't have to really worry about overflow combo points, things like that. So that's something that is really valuable, to be able to just not really think about it, just say, oh, do I have 5? Yes, okay, do this. Do I not have 5? Okay, do this. However, on ad heavy fights, Marked for Death is really powerful. So it instantly gives you 5 combo points. So when you're switching back and forth between targets, you can instantly have 5 combo points, get a Rupture up, get whatever up, and really powerful because I think if it dies within 1 minute, then it resets the cooldown. So you can kind of just kill ads, mark them, kill them, mark them, kill them, mark them, kill them. And that's obviously why that's so powerful.